Alright, so the next class we want to talk about is the controller. So I explained to you in the class what a controller is. A controller is essentially where you go to set the conditions of your script. So this is where the performance actually gets started. So before we can use a controller, let me create a script in Week10 that has three transactions. The first transaction is going to be login. The second transaction will be book a flight, and my third transaction will be sign off. So I'm going to use those three transactions in controller, and you can watch and measure the results. Okay, so to get started, I'll go into my file, I'll go add new script, and I'll call this script Tuesday demo controller. Okay, I'll select my HTTP as my protocol, and I'll start recording right away. So now, because I want to do three transactions, I have to be very careful here. So once it loads up, I'm going to start recording my first transaction, which is sign in. Okay, so I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to sign in with Ty Ali and my password. Then I'll press login. So once I'm logged in, that's the end of that transaction. So I can end that transaction and say yes, and sign in. And right away, I'll click on flights, and before anything else happens, I'm going to start my transactions for flights, and I'll call that book a flight, and I'll press OK. So once my transaction is started for book a flight, I can now go ahead and start booking a flight. So we can book a flight from London to Paris, and I want 2 passengers, and I can say give it a first class, and I can continue. I'll pick a flight, so I want an expensive flight, and I'll press continue, and in here I'll put in my credit card number to book my flight, and the expiry date will be 11/12, and I'll press continue. So this is the end of booking a flight. This is a very fast system, as you can see. So after I'm done this, I will end my transactions for book a flight. And I didn't call that 2. That should have been number 2, but that's fine. Now to sign off, let's record another transaction. So I'll begin another transaction, and I'll say number 3 this time around. Don't make that mistake. And I'll call it sign off. And this will essentially measure how long it takes to sign off from the application. So press sign off, and once we signed off, I will stop my transaction. Sign off is done, and I will close, and that's the end of our recording. So now I have one script that has 3 different transactions. Okay, so let's play back to make sure everything is fine. And now, okay, we have correlations. What is a correlation? Correlation is basically LoadRunner trying to tell you that there are some values in your recording that will keep changing or might change. And these are things you know, I know. For example, flights. Yes, we can select London, Paris. We know that. So for things like that, you can ignore it. For a round trip, yes, we know there could be a round trip. It could be a one-way trip. We know that. For the seat type. So these are things that you know that, okay, would always change, or you can change it. For address, yes. So for things like that, just ignore and go along. But whenever you see session, which is what I recorded in the class video I gave you, if you see a session, please always press correlate, because session changes all the time, right? So whenever you see a session, click on it and press correlate. The video I made in class to you guys has the session. Okay, so right now there's no session in this. You just press close, saying thank you LoadRunner, I see it, but I'm okay with it. And let's run it to make sure it replays fine and everything is okay. Okay, so that was a pass, and in here you can see we ran it, and you can see the time it took for my script to run. So the first transaction took us sign in took us 0.25 seconds. The next transaction was book a flight. That took us 3.6 seconds, obviously a lot longer, and the last one took us 0.145 seconds. Alright, so now that we have three transactions, this would be a good time to transfer this script into our controller. To do that, you go into your All Programs, HP Software, HP LoadRunner, and you click on the controller. In controller, we have two different options, which I'll show you once it loads up. Okay, so the first thing you're going to see is a scenario type. What is a scenario type? A scenario type is how do you want to test. If you know exactly what you're looking for, then you select the goal-oriented, meaning your manager or your company has told you, Javid, I want this test to respond within 5 seconds. So you're basically going to tell LoadRunner, once the test goes longer than 5 seconds, terminate the test. That means you have a goal in mind. You know exactly what the endpoint is. Or if your boss tells you, Javid, I want to know exactly what the response time is if I have 1,000 customers. So you know right away, you're going to use goal and you're going to type in 1,000 load virtual users because you have a goal. But if you have no goal and you just want to basically play around, to measure what the breaking point is, what the stress is, endurance testing is, then you're better off using the manual scenario. Okay? So let's use a manual scenario, and I'm going to uncheck the percentage mode. It keeps it very simple. And I'll press OK. So now it's going to load up the controller for me with an empty scenario. Okay, so now I have to select my script. So click on the group name and select your script. The name of the script was Tuesday Demo Controller. So once I have that in there, by default, the number of virtual users, which is the load I can play with, is 10. Okay. Now let's set or let's describe the test we're trying to do. Okay. So the first thing you go into is initialize. Initialize every user before it runs. That's fine. Start users. Now this is your load. So HP is saying how many users do you want to test these transactions with. Remember we have 3 users. Well, I can say for this test, because I'm recording this, I don't want to take a lot of your time, I would say for this test, give me only 3 users. You can set that to as many as you want. And I can say, give me simultaneously. Now, simultaneously means at the same time. So you want 3 users to jump on at the same time and run a test. Or do you want users to be added sequentially? It's totally up to you. To keep it simple, they can make it fast. I would say simultaneous, and I would say 10 users at the same time. Okay? Let's press OK. Now it says how long do you want to run this test for. So I would say duration, I would say run until all my users are done. Okay, that's totally up to you. If you have a goal in mind, you can run it for days. If you're doing endurance testing, you can say run this test for 3 days, for 1 week, for 10 days, or for only 5 minutes. For this, I'm going to say stop when all my users have done their testing. Okay, so now as you can see, everything has changed. The diagram is changed because I don't have a duration. See, he's saying, okay, we're going to start you off at 10 users, and they're all just going to go, and once the 10 users are done, we're going to end it. If I chose a different schedule, say run for 2 minutes, watch, the graph is going to essentially look like this. So we're going to start, and we're going to go for 2 minutes, and we're going to drop off at 2 minutes. Okay? So it's entirely up to you how you want to test this. Alright, so if you're happy with your test, you can start running. And to start running, you go into your play and you start the scenario. Okay, so you press play, and right away it starts to run. So you see that the mouse has moved from design to run. And once you're in the running section, there are a couple of things to look out for here. Right now, ignore the graphs. Only if the more you look at the graphs, the more you understand it. But there's a better view that we can use to look at the graph. Everything you really care about while it's running is your number of transactions that have passed. So right now, remember we have 3 transactions, so 20 have passed. So that means it's run probably each transaction 3 times, or probably even 5 times, because 5 times 3 is 15. As you can see, all my transactions are passing, and none is failing, okay? And there's no error. So that's what you're looking out for here while it's running. So while it's running, you can go grab a coffee, take a break, say hi to your wife or your kids, and you can come back and watch it finish running.